We have to fight. Our backs against the wall. We can't leave Obama in there for 4 more years. This man has been devastated to every community in America, has not done one thing for black folks in this country. Not one thing. Not one thing. If he's a white man, we would have said he's the worst president that ever sat in the White House. When you look at the condition of the black communities throughout America. I travel all over. And it just brings tears to my eyes of where black folks were under President Bush and where we are today. Can't let that man stay in the White House. He don't care about anybody else except himself. He don't care if the whole nation goes down. He doesn't care. When he came to Seattle, it was my church's choir at Garfield High School that was standing up there singing, and all them black folks came there to hear that man. That man has never stepped foot back in the black community since that time. He doesn't really care. He doesn't have a heart for people. And he's constantly complaining about what he inherited. What did he inherit? First of all, you must understand that Obama came into the Senate during the race of 2006. And in that race, the Democrats took over Congress. Democrats controlled the House and the Senate. 2 years while Bush was president. And if you know anything about your civics, you know that it is Congress that decides the budget. That's not the president's job. It's Congress that dictates the spending. So for 2 years, Democrats running Congress, they were the ones responsible for all of the spending. I remember it got so tense that one time Bush was trying to get funding for the soldiers, and they stood up and said, "We're not going to give you a dime until you approve our budget." Bush said, "Our troops are there in Iraq. They need the funding." And it went down to the 9th hour, and they made Bush sign on just so that he could have money to support the soldiers. You need to remember that. The media will not talk about that. That was Barack Obama sitting there in the Senate. And if he had any foresight, he would have known and should have known the financial crisis that was coming because he was a senator then. Then when he took the White House, the Democrats owned the White House, they owned the Senate, and they owned the House of Representatives. They owned everything. So everything that happened during those 2 years, they totally created it all. What he inherited is what he created. My son, my 2 sons, are my 2 sons. Not because of anybody else. They're my sons because of me. And I could cast them off and say all kinds of things. You're not my son. No, they're my sons because of me. These problems that Barack Obama has, they're his problems because he created them as a senator, and he continued to create them 2 years after he became the president. And it's been decades before the White House was ever owned by, and Congress was owned by one party. So what did he inherit? He inherited gas prices at $1.80 a gallon. When Barack Obama stood in the White House and gave his inauguration speech, gas prices was $1.80 a gallon. $1.80 a gallon when he was president, and when the Democrats owned the Senate and they owned the House of Representatives after he took over for Bush, gas prices was $1.80 a gallon. Since then, they've gone up to over $4 a gallon, almost $5 a gallon, and they've averaged $4 a gallon under his administration. Nobody else is under his administration. When he took office, what did he inherit? He inherited unemployment at the rate of 5.2%. That's what he inherited. Unemployment. That's what Bush passed on to him. An unemployment rate of 5.2%. After he took the White House and he owned the Senate and House of Representatives, unemployment went up almost to 10% and remained there, even though he spent $800 billion and claimed that he's going to keep it below 8%. So he inherited unemployment at 5.2%. He inherited food prices. It costs more to buy a Coca-Cola now than it did before Obama took office. Rice, wheat, soybeans, and the commodities all went up 4% under his administration, which affected all of the food prices. While he was president and while the Democrats occupied the Senate and the House of Representatives, food prices, you know the cost of food today. I was talking to a food broker friend of mine, and I said, tell me, how much has food gone up since Obama's been president of the United States? And he said, Wayne, not only has food prices gone skyrocket, he said that companies that refuse to raise the price of food are now making the food in smaller packages and keeping them at the same price. And you think the price has not gone up, but they reduce the content of the packages. He's a food broker. Obama inherited lower food prices. When Obama took office, there were thousands of teachers employed. After he's been in office, 75,000 teachers have lost the job. When Obama took office, he inherited a number of banks, car dealerships, and manufacturing plants that were doing business. After 2 years of him being president, 350 banks have closed their doors. 1,605 car dealerships have gone out of business. And several of the manufacturing companies that got part of the $800 billion have now closed their doors. When he inherited the presidency, there were fewer people on food stamps. Today, 45.8 million people are now on food stamps. That's a 34% increase. 14% of our population is collecting unemployment. 1 out of every 5 men in this country, for the first time since World War II, is unemployed since he was taking office. So what did he inherit? He inherited black support when he took office. Since he's taken office, Jesse Jackson has complained about him, Louis Farrakhan has complained about him, Professor Cornel West has complained about him, Tavis Smiley has complained about him, the Congressional Black Caucus has complained about him, the National Black Broadcaster Association has complained about him, and the Black parents in Chicago complained about him because gang violence increased in Chicago after he became president, when all the black leaders were saying, this man's going to be a role model. But all of us who grew up on the street know that somebody in Washington, D.C. can't be our role model. Our role models are right there in the hood. That's why we join gang, because that's our role model. That's the person got our back. That's the person who's going to provide for us. Whether through drugs or whatever crime, we know we can go to that person, but we can't go to Washington, D.C. So when gang violence increased, the same community where he was a community organizer, those black parents got together, because I get all of their emails from all over the country. And they were telling me that they were trying to get Barack Obama to come back to Chicago to talk to the kids about gangs. He refused to go. He sent Eric Holder, his Justice Department guy, the Attorney General, and he sent the Secretary of Education. And the parents said, no, Obama, we want you there. He refused to go. And when they got there in the Chicago area, they didn't go in the hood where the gangs were there. They went in the suburbs, and the black parents couldn't even make it out there to the meeting. So the black parents complained about Obama since he's been